Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hiya, how you doing?
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, David, how are you?
Hi. Good. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good.
Yeah. Good.
And we got Steve as well already on. What we'll do is we'll give it a few minutes and then we'll get cracking. Hey, Steve, how are you? I haven't seen you for ages. How are you doing?
Yes, several, at least
Decades.
12, I'm gonna guess, something like that. Yeah, but I'm good. I'm good,
Good.
and I'm assuming you're fine as well.
Yeah, really good. Really good.
Excellent.
Good.
Hi, David.
Good.
Hey,
Right,
Steve.
let's now let me start seeing if I can. I think I've got everyone coming in here unmuted, which is probably not the best thing to do. So let me just,
You want us muted now, don't you? Yes.
yeah, mute yourself now, and then as we get more people in. Oh no, people are coming in muted. That's good. I'll just mute you, David, as well. So yeah, okay. The audio. Fantastic. Let me just go back to my settings and do that quickly. Okay. Oh, 64 people. Wow. Blimey. Okay. That's interesting. Don't need to notify returns about changes. There we go. That's saved.
Hello, everybody. We'll be with you in a moment. We're just doing all the technical stuff.
Right. So that means that people now joining will be muted. So that's good. Okay. Let's go back to here. Right. So, hi, Louise. How are you doing? Oh, fantastic. So we've got... let me just check where we've got how many people we've got on. Can't see how many people. Oh, we've got 9 on the moment, and more joining us. So let's get cracking anyway, and then we'll just we're going to try and keep this to under an hour, and obviously we've got plenty to talk about. So let's begin. Let's begin. So just as we set up in the Zoom settings, in the email settings, we had a little bit of a poll to see who had experience of the principles. And hi, Helen, how you doing? And if people had some questions beforehand as well, which has been really useful. So Fiona and I have been talking about that today. And we're just going to do a very brief introduction. I know quite a few of you anyway, and I'm sure Fiona does know some of you too. And then we'll get cracking on some of the questions. And we're actually probably going to do another webinar as a result of the amount of interest. 64 people was actually quite a few more than we were thinking. So I know a lot of people couldn't make this call today anyway. So it's obviously an area that is sparking a bit of interest, so which is fascinating. Some of you might have seen my call with Amir that I did on Friday, and so that's as a bit of a lead into this. So I'll do a very brief introduction of myself first, because then that will just allow more people to come on board as I do that, because most of you will know this anyway. I was actually sitting quite near Steve when I first came across the principles at Jamie Smart's conference back in February the 26th, 2011. Don't know if you remember the date well, Steve. When I heard someone say something by a guy called Sid Banks, and for any of you who don't know about the principles, it was that's what kind of got me into understanding how the human mind operates, that gave me freedom from my own really destructive thinking, and just let me realize that I didn't have to pay too much attention to it, or any attention to it, actually. Sometimes I pay more attention than others, but that's just the nature of the beast. So and then I wrote a book called Do Nothing, which some of you may have read. And as a result of writing that book, it started, I guess, my never-ending journey with the understanding of. I'm just going to say the 3 principles, the understanding of it all, really. trying to kind of piece together how we as humans operate with this wonderful intelligence that we've been given, which is the energy behind life. And just sort of jumping ahead to when I've met Fiona, because I met Fiona last year. Actually, no, sorry, it's still this year, isn't it? 2018. So yeah, fairly recently, still this year. God, where's this year gone? And Fiona works with energy. She reads energy. She'll introduce herself. So some of you will know her anyway. She works with energy, and I am open to understanding more. And I'm not the sort of person, some of you will know me, I'm not the sort of person that says, I know this, this is how it is. I'm the sort of person that goes, I know what I know so far, and I'm always open to understanding more and exploring more. And what I know, well, the one thing I do know that is true is that I don't know. So therefore I'm open to new information, new ideas. And I'm not going to disregard something just because it doesn't fit into my current model. I'm going to explore it and see how it works. And as a result of meeting Fiona reads energy, works with energy. And all I can say is that I have put so many clients in Fiona's direction, and every single one of them says, don't understand what she does, something happened. And I feel free as a result. I've had my own experience with that. I had an 1.5-hour session with Fiona where, again, didn't really understand it, was open to kind of whatever you do, and had a massive shift as a result. I mean, phenomenal shift. And just really as a result of that, I've just, when I see an obstacle or feel an obstacle or come across an obstacle, I'm just like, I think I might have the person you need to speak to. So anyway, Fiona, do you want to kind of explain a little bit more about what you do? Because as I say, I don't know.
Okay.
And tell us your story and how also you came across the principles, because obviously that's part of this. So
Sure. So I was born reading energy, and of course I didn't know that. I was just incredibly interested in other people's emotions, and I knew what other people were feeling, and I knew that they weren't my feelings. I knew that they belonged to Joe or Jim or Mary or whoever it was. And it took me quite some time before, and I mean quite some time, until I was at least 12, to appreciate that people didn't know what they were feeling. And that was like mind-boggling to me. Like, why didn't people know what they were feeling? And it was only when I studied psychology at university that I realized that psychologists think that's kind of normal, which again I find quite mind-boggling. But I realized that a lot of people aren't in touch with their emotions. But more than that, it seems that a growing number of people are not in touch with their body and their embodiment of who they are. So I had lots of questions, studied psychology, studied Buddhism, was into Buddhism for 13 years, studied NLP, energetic NLP, and none of them really gave me the answers that I was looking for, because I wanted the big questions like, why are we here? What's the point of it? Does God exist? So I studied something called conscious evolution, and I'm part of a conscious evolutionary project here in Portugal where I live. And then last year I came across the principles, and I was just like, wow, this is it. This is, in my humble opinion, simple, because it brings together the psychological, scientific explanation of perception and the way our mind works, mind as in little m works, and it also ties it in with big mind and how all of that is. So to me, I was blown away, and I read 4 books in a month, which I've never done before in my life. And then I just read, I just kept reading books and talking to people, and it was really fascinating to me. And so it was great when, I came across Sydney Banks' books, and he was like, Mind, he has lots of names for mind, but he says mind is universal intelligence, it's inner wisdom, it's the energy behind life, like Damian said. And to me, that was it. I was just completely sold, hook, line and sinker, because it brings together mind, everything that is, with energy. And to me, that's the ultimate combination. And that's what excites me. That's what I work with people. In a way, I'm quite surprised to find that people don't understand what I do, because I send them quite a comprehensive email afterwards. And I teach you how to work with your energy, because I believe in totally empowering you to be who you really are, to be the best you can be, and to get the most out of life. And of course, that ties in with the three principles, because we are oneness and we are unlimited unless we're lost in our thoughts. So I'm sure we're going to say some more. But
so some of the questions that came in prior to us doing this call, I think we can actually start to even talk about some of those now. And the first one was, what is energy? So, and we kind of want to relate it to the principles. Now, from the point of view of the principles, I think Sid, when you do those charades games and people do, I'm going to do the whole thing in one go. Yeah. So basically, I mean, we from the starting point that we are all one energy. Yeah. So when we talk about oneness, we're all the same energy, just vibrating at different speeds and levels, etc. And Sid pretty much, I think, said that. So he called it universal mind. So anyone who doesn't know about the principles, they're universal mind, universal thought, and universal consciousness. Universal mind was kind of like the whole shebang. Like they're all really one principle. That's what he said often. It's all really one thing. So that's kind of the starting point. Is just mute anyone who comes in quickly. Thanks if you mute yourself. So that's really kind of like the starting point. So we're kind of playing within that whole sphere. But what we're talking about when we're talking about energy, the energy that you're working with, and I kind of mentioned this on the call with Amir the other day, is that when we talk about the form and the formless, we're using words, and it looks like that we are talking about two separate things, but actually we are talking about the same thing. It's all one thing. Yeah. So, the formless is the form and the form is the formless. So that's kind of like the starting point. But I think people want to, we want to understand more. We want to understand about how you work with energy. So can I just ask you, I'm going to treat it like an interview here. When you say you read people's energy, what do you see?
okay. Well, when I first started working with people, and I'm just going to change it to gallery view because I hate seeing a massive picture of myself on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So when I started working with people, I felt them. I felt what they were feeling, and I would tell them what they were feeling. And I'm talking about like when I was like 10, 12. When I really first started working with people, I was 3 years old on a bus. I'd look at somebody and I'd be like, oh, they're in pain. And then I would just know where that pain was. It was in their back. And I would just talk to the body, and their body would change, and the person would give me a happy look or a dirty look. But they were grateful because they were no longer in pain. And I would just literally talk to the body. And I didn't know what I was doing because honestly, I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And again, I just thought everyone could do it. But now when I read somebody's energy, your energy talks to you in the way that you learn. So if you're a kinesthetic learner, you're a feeling person, you will feel your energy. If you're an auditory learner, you learn best through hearing things, you will hear your energy. If you learn best through visual, you will see your energy. Now, most people see their energy, but it's so who you are that maybe you don't know the difference, and a lot of people talk about gut feeling, and when I question people, it's not really a feeling in your gut, because the feeling in your gut is fear. But when you have this feeling that goes across your chest or it goes all the way through your body, that's when you know that you're tapping into your energy, you're tapping into your innate wisdom, you're tapping into the energy of all that is, which Sid Banks talks about. So Does that answer your question, Damian? I read your energy in whatever way that you talk to your own energy in, because then it makes sense to you.
Okay. So one of the other questions that came up, which kind of leads on exactly from that, is what do you mean by working with energy?
Okay. So a lot of people say to me, oh, do you read auras or do you do Reiki? And I'm not putting any of those modalities down because they're all useful. They all have their place. But you are literally energy. That's what we are. We're mind. But mind and energy work together to create this beautiful form you see in yourself and you see everyone else looking on the screen. And you're in constant flow, you're in constant flux. It's like Damian said, the form and the formers are one thing, and we are both all at the same time. So if you took out all of the space from our body, so if you took out all the energy, because energy is space, and that's another scientific concept, but it's in quantum physics if you're interested, we would be the size of a playing dice. So we would be like this big. And it doesn't matter if you're a huge 200 kilogram person or you're a little baby. If you take out all of the space, what's solid in the body is the size of a playing dice. So everything else is energy. So I teach you how do you tap into your energy? How do you tap into your innate wisdom? And I ask you questions that enables you to see all of that and to be with all of it in whatever learning style you have. And then I just guide you through it so you learn how to work with your own energy, which just clears loads of unwanted habits. But that's another question that we're going to get into later.
Mm-hmm. So so let's say that I know nothing about the principles, right? How do you incorporate your understanding of the principles with your work with energy?
Okay, so before I came across the principles, I was talking about conscious evolution and consciousness, and believe me, that was much more hard work. The principles for me is, it's thought, consciousness, mind. Now, thought is often a way that most people operate, that they're in here, right? They're in their heads, that their heads buzzing, they're getting lost in thought, they're playing old programs, they're living their life unconsciously. And then when you help people get into their body, that they connect with the deeper part of themselves and they become more conscious, as the three principles say. And then the more conscious you become, self-conscious of your own being and what's around you, then you naturally start waking up to mind. You naturally start waking up to, oh, wow, this feels really good. I feel really connected to this person. I can feel this person. This person feels warm to me. So I'll give a brief little story. So when I started working with people with energy, and I'd been away on a long retreat, and I came back to England, and I was presenting the night I landed. I was presenting and I was a bit blown away by all the different noise and everything else, because I've been living on my own, I think, in a van in the middle of nowhere on this retreat. And I was just like bombarded by all this noise. And something was going on personally inside of me. Something had been, like thrown up in this retreat, like a pebble in dirty water. And I didn't want people to see my dirty water. So I decided that I would do this presentation and I'd keep my energy field really close to me. Now, your energy field is basically personal space. That's the easiest way to talk about it. It's your personal space inside of your body, and it can extend to the size of a room, the size of the planet, or like I did that night, I kept it really close to me. And what I noticed is I didn't enjoy myself. And because I didn't feel connected to people, I didn't feel the warmth. And then as we were packing up, there was just me and my mates in the room, and I relaxed and I started to enjoy myself, and I felt connected and I felt the warmth of people, and we were having a laugh and a joke, and I laugh quite a lot. I think that's one of the main reasons why we're here on this planet, is to laugh. And it suddenly dawned on me, the reason why I was enjoying myself was because of the connection. And the reason why I was connected is my energy field was big enough that people were able to interact with me. They were able to feel me. And they were like, wow, Fiona's back. You know, and one of my friends actually said that to me. So, you know, it's really important. This connection is really important. And Sydney Banks talks about it all the time. He says when we're in, and I'm not going to say exactly what he says because I'm not a bookworm, I'm afraid. But my understanding of what he says is that when we're really connected into ourselves, in our own being, and we're open to mind, we keep an eye on mind, a lot of people say here, then we really are, you know, ready for mind to come through us. Like, you know, he says calm and bliss is just one thought away, because we're either stuck in here in all this mess that goes on up here, or we're in our heart open and connected to everybody. And that's when we're really in mind. And that's in my understanding of it, that's when we're really connected to everyone and everything, because we're all mind, we're all one being. So I'm working with people's energies so they can get rid of all the rubbish up here and all the programming and open up to mind.
So one of the things that I mentioned on the call with Amir on Friday was talking about how meditation and mindfulness is something that's really useful. And the way I described it was that if you could, let's take a metaphor of the form and the formless. Let's just say that they're not one. Let's just say that we kind of feel that they're separate. Well, and I kind of described energy as, you can take a really simple analogy of energy as water. So you take water, you increase the vibration of water, give it more energy, it speeds up, it turns into steam, it turns into the formless. You lower the vibration of energy, you cool it down, you take the heat out of it, and it cools to ice, it goes harder. So that's kind of like an example of the form and the formless in science. If you think of meditation, what you're doing with meditation is you're taking the formless, the spirit, and settling it down to the same level as relaxation. You know, you're relaxing the spirit, you're relaxing the body. If you do exercise, which is another thing that's good for the soul, you are increasing it, you're speeding it up, you're taking it up to a hotter level. So that was just one because I wanted to kind of start to address this whole thing, you know, even talking about universal principles, and try and, you know, use metaphors that actually have like scientific basis, that have scientific understanding, and using metaphors that people can visualize and go, oh yeah, well that kind of makes sense. So I think one of the things that you know you kind of pointed to there was that when the energy is real, it's not. You know, when we're talking about the formless, we are not talking about something that doesn't exist, that you have to imagine. We are talking about something that's actually real. And we're looking at it now. You know, we're using electricity that is formless, but is powering what we've all got in front of us. So it's not that we're not talking about something woo-woo here. We're just talking about, we are starting to have an understanding of how this operates. And we can start to actually play with it. Oh, someone's unmuted. Let's see who that is. Oh, it's Joe. Got you. It's all right, done. So it's about practical application. Yeah. So I think just that kind of needs to be kind of highlighted here. We're not talking about something that is inexplicable. We are talking about working with energy. So I just want to ask you on that one. So in terms of alignment, someone mentioned on one of the questions about attunement, they were talking about whether you needed to be attuned or aligned to work at your optimum. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So in my perspective, and in a lot of people's perspective, you're born attuned to nature. And you can call that nature, you can call that God, you can call that mind, you can call it stardust, which actually is true. I was meant to say something funny and then something serious come out of my mouth. So, you know, we're all oneness, so we're all attuned. And the question, I think, was related to Reiki, wasn't it, Damian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Reiki is, and you know, I studied Reiki. Reiki is using universal energy, and it's channeling universal energy through you and out of your hands with most people. And, you know, there's a whole belief system that you need to be attuned to that and everything else. Where, you know, again, that's like saying that my energy is separate from the universe's energy. Well, that can't be true, can it? Because, you know, life is animating me all the time. I'm a speaking, breathing, operating human being, just like everybody else is here. So there isn't really any difference between individual energy and universal energy, apart from the fact that it's brilliant to be an individual. So some of us get our kicks from chocolate, and some of us got our kicks from playing football. And, you know, put in the blanks anything you want, but you know what I mean. So we are both at the same time. We're individuals and we're mind. And, you know, that's the beauty of being alive. So you're attuned to all of this right from the moment of birth. So Reiki is brilliant, but Reiki is really brilliant when you know that you're just an antennae that can bring in the energy anyway, you know, from mind, from nature, you know, from the ground up through your body. Like if we had time, I'd love to bring you through a grounding exercise. But one of the quickest ways to ground is just breathe in and out of your diaphragm.
Mm. The word love just really popped into my head in a massive explosion there. I think, you know, Sid talked about it a lot. In fact, someone actually mentioned when we did the retreat at the beginning of the year with Jack Pransky in Cape Verde, and someone actually said, oh no, he was talking about how I think people will have heard the audios of, you know, someone saying to Sid, it's, oh, why didn't you say that before? And Sid said, you know, I said it 28,000 times, and it's just that this is the time you heard it. Why can't people say Sid's words and it have the same effect? It's how you say it. It's not the words. It's the feeling behind it. And in that respect, you know, you can be with a child and feel such a close bond with no word said. It's about the feeling being generated. And when you said the antenna, it's like when we open ourselves up to this, you know, receptacle of pure love, which is really what we are, and what our potential. You know, as Jack said, all we are is pure peace, love, and wisdom, the power to create the illusion we're not. It's like we're bypassing the filter system, you know, the thoughts telling us we can't be, and we're opening ourselves up to that power, and then we can share that. We can share that with others, or we can enjoy it with ourselves, or we can do whatever.
Yeah. Like, to me, I think it's quite amazing that people question love. Because if you just put your hand on your heart right now and you feel the beat of it and you feel like everything that your body's doing, isn't that amazing? You know, I just have to put my hand there and I just feel love, or I start laughing straight away, because to me that's the miracle of being alive. And how blessed are we to be alive? Like, I'm sorry if that sounds a bit woo-woo to people, but, you know, if you don't follow me, put your hand on your heart and see what happens. You might even laugh.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I've got some more questions here. So, okay. So this is a really interesting one, especially for the seasoned three peers. Who have we got here? I can't remember who said this, but I believe we can absorb each other's energy, that yet this would be an outside-in effect. Is it all just our thinking in the moment? What would you say to that? Okay.
So I've actually written a book about this, and it's a free book, by the way. There's a term called, okay, let's give an example. We've all had the example of, we've been really looking forward to meeting somebody, like been really excited about it. Maybe we haven't seen this person for a long time, or maybe we've got a crush on them, or maybe they're already our partners, and we go to a coffee shop and we meet them, and, you know, we're really excited, and we get there, and, you know, and they're not at their best. And then when we leave, 10 minutes later, an hour later, it's completely reversed, right? We're miserable, and they walk out with a bounce in their step. So what's just happened? Most people would say, oh, I absorbed their energy. It's their fault, you know. Now that is an outside-in perspective. I absorbed their energy, so it's their fault. What's happened is something in you has matched their energy, which has allowed their energy to come into you, and you've allowed it through matching their energy, which is often an unconscious pattern. And so their energy has done its natural thing, you know, like attracts like. That's a rule of physics. It's a rule of energy. So the energy comes into them, like attracts like, comes into you, sorry, like attracts like. And your energy naturally goes out to them, because we're compassionate beings that are meant to be together. We're meant to help each other, you know, and don't get me started on Darwinism, but we're meant to help each other. So this is called energy exchange, and it's natural, and you probably all felt it, you know, with your children, with pets, with friends, with your partner. You know, you have so-called two human beings, and then in between you, there's this kind of space where we nearly all feel that the energy is either easily going through and it's just doing this, or it's going, you know, fire, explosion, arguments, whatever, or just it feels like one person is just sucking the life out of you. Now, if that's happening, you're allowing it. There's either so the rules of energy matching are your energy is exactly the same as theirs, so you're going to take it on, or they can easily give it to you. Or you are trying to persuade your adolescent child to do something he doesn't want to do. So his energy is ramping up, he doesn't want to do it. And your energy is ramping up because you want him to do it, and you're in conflict. But the energies are actually matching, because conflicting energies of the same power match each other. Because energy is not good or bad. It doesn't care that one person wants to do it and one person doesn't. The vibrational level is a match. So
you've now kind of taken it to a level where even I'm like going, I don't get that. I mean, I get what you're talking about, but you know, so
I can sum it up in one easier sentence. If you're absorbing somebody's energy, you have allowed that to happen. You are creating energy inside of you that's matching their energy, and it can be an unconscious program. So I'm not saying it's your fault, but you have allowed it to happen. And that's why working with energy is so important, because you clear away a lot of unconscious beliefs, you clear away a lot of habits like that. Damian can do a testimonial to this. Last week I worked with a young lad, 13 years old, and this even blew me away. So I'm going to tell you about it because I'm very happy about it. With obsessive compulsive disorder. I worked with him completely energetically. And I talked to him about thought, but of course I didn't say the 3 principles, because this lad has enough on his plate. So, and within 1 hour, he got rid of his OCD. It's been 10 days now, and he hasn't had any of his rituals. And I worked with him purely energetically, but I guided him to do his own work. I just watched and observed what he was doing. And I was just with him with a lot of love and a lot of compassion. And it was awesome.
So this is what blows me away about you, Fiona, and this is you know, why I'm so happy to put clients in your direction, because I've been working with this young lad and purely from a 3 principles perspective. And you know, again, I wasn't really talking about the principles. I was talking about his thinking in the moment. Now, I suffered from OCD for years, and got freedom from it through an understanding of the principles. And I've helped a lot of people with OCD, but he wasn't shifting. There was something that wasn't working. And you know, I know when I did my session with you, Fiona, you did something. You unblocked something, and I have no idea what it was, and I have no idea how you did it. I just know that I was knackered for 2 days afterwards, and some weird stuff had happened. And as a result, all of the stuff that was blocking just stopped blocking it. And I have no idea what you did. So I, through my understanding of the principles, went into, and you know, Jack is sort of taught me, and he said it's about listening from that place of love. So I didn't have an answer. Hold on, someone's just messaged me. I'm just going to have to get off that for a sec. So I did. I listened from this place of love, and something occurred to me. And I think a thought of you popped up in my head. And I ended up speaking to his dad, and I said, was there a separation that happened at birth with him? And he said, yeah, there was. It was for a couple of hours, and it was quite traumatic for both his mum and him. And I just said, I've got someone that I think he should speak to, because I think it might help. And bearing in mind, I've been working with him for sort of 6 months, and then Fiona has one conversation with him, and again, I don't know, I don't know what you did, but it works. So this is what I mean about being open to. I don't know how this stuff works. I just know that there's a lot to it, and I'm also exploring it and understanding more about it. So there was the background to that. Anyway, I'm just going to check on my message. I'm going to give you a quick question, and I'm just going to check on the message that I got privately there. So I don't want to make sure that everyone benefits from this. So someone said this is a good one. So someone was talking about family mindset and habits, and about how they can be quite hard to shift if you're around them constantly. I think we've already kind of touched upon that a little bit. So can you just talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so, your habits and how your family are, basically when you're born, you are programmed by your parents and your family to fit in. And it's really, really important that you're programmed to fit in, because if you don't, they're going to kick you out of the tribe. Now, this might seem like, no, we don't do that as humans. Well, unfortunately, I'm a child psychologist. We do that as humans. And in fact, maybe it'd be better if we were still animals and we literally just kicked them out of the nest because they could go and find another nest. But as humans, if you don't fit into your family, whether you've had a great family or a shit family, you're all going to know this, excuse my French, that, you have to fit in, don't you? But, they teach you good things. Conditioning is teaching to brush your teeth, for example, to cross the road. That's all good stuff. But conditioning is also the not so good stuff, like you're rubbish at that. You're really good at sport and you're really good at maths, but you can't do English to save your life. Like that was one of my programmings. Actually, I've written 2 books and I've got a degree. So that wasn't true, was it? But I believed it for a long, long time because that's what I was conditioned to believe. So, you're programmed to fit into your family. And what you do is you create a role for yourself. You create that role. They create a role for you and you'll play your roles. And if everyone plays their roles, everybody gets on. We all know that story, don't we? Because we've all got families and that's what's happened to all of us. There's a lot of nodding heads, so that's good. So we have an investment to continue with those unconscious, habitual role playing that we do with our family, because it keeps us in the tribes, it keeps us happy. And yes, it is difficult to break through that. However, it's not so difficult when you're conscious of it. So, thought consciousness, when you become conscious of your thoughts, of your thinking, then your consciousness, the light you're shining on those thoughts gives you the chance to say, hold on, I don't want to do that anymore. Or hold on, when I'm around my parents, I act like a stupid child. But in my everyday life, I'm quite an intelligent woman. So what's going on here? And just bringing the consciousness to it can be enough to change it. But we've all had examples where that's not been enough. And then, we can go to mind. We can just relax. We can deep listen. We can have compassion with our families. And we might feel an awful lot better. And it may or may not change the environment, but we feel better. But this is the interesting thing. When you work with energy, you work directly with the unconscious mind. You work directly with the conditioning programs. You work directly with the roles that you play and the roles that other people play for you and hold you to. And one of the exercises I do with nearly everyone I work with is I get them to separate their energy from their family's energy. It doesn't mean you love them any less. In fact, you love them more because they're more able to get their own energy then, and more able to fill up their own energy. Because we're all like cars. We need our own fuel. We need our own unique energy mixed with the universal energy to run at our most powerful. But we take on so much of conditioning that we spend 95% of our life unconscious, which means we just repeat the same old patterns again and again and again and get the same old results. So becoming conscious of them helps. But when you actually work with the energy and you clear the energy, that's the foundation of the belief, the foundation of the conditioning, then it all just goes and there's nothing left. And that's basically what happens in all the sessions. That's what happened with you, Damian. You know, I was just like, okay, this energy is here in your body. It's related to this story. And I knew all of this. So I just asked Damian and he was like, yeah. And then I was like, so what are you going to do with it? And he cleared it. Damian did it. I didn't do it, even though he thinks I did. He cleared it. And I just made sure it was gone by reading his energy and asking him questions and making sure he knew how to be his real self without reverting back to the old energy. Because that's really important, because the mind and the emotions has to come on board with the energy change. And that's the difference with me, because I've got a degree in psychology. I work with the energy, but I also know all the programming that was in place to put that energy there. So I work with the thoughts and I work with the emotions. And ultimately, I'm always leading people to mind, because that's who we really are. And imagine if we lived in a world where we all knew we were mind, we all knew we were love. The planet would be such a different place.
I just want to kind of follow that with something that I think will tie in really nicely with the people that are experienced with the principles here, because there is something which I always struggled with if I was talking about. So someone just said, if it's just thinking in the moment, you know, how does this kind of relate to it? Well, I always struggled with saying that it's just thought. I always struggled with that, because thought is energy. Right? Thought is, the power of thought is an immense energy, but the personal thoughts we have are energy. So to say to someone, you know, so for instance, with the young kid who had OCD, you know, just to say that it's just thought, right? When obviously those thoughts are very powerful and they've got there's a reason for them. They were produced as a strategy to keep him alive. Right, that's ultimately what it was. There was a separation. There was a strategy that was created in that moment through the power of thought, brought to mind by consciousness within his own body, that gave him a strategy which was going to keep him alive, which was, if I can control this myself, I might at least stand a chance here to survive. Yeah. So I always struggled with that. I always struggled with saying to people, "Oh, it's just your thinking," right? That's kind of what kept me, I think, in many respects, on a bit of the periphery of the Three Principles community, because I was like, well, it's a cornerstone, it's a foundation. I get what it is, but I'm missing a piece here. I'm missing something here. I can't just say it's just thought, because thought is power, thought is energy, and I think it does have immense power, used wrongly. Let's just say. I mean, I know there's no right or wrong. So, you know, when Jack says all we are is peace, love, and wisdom, and power to create the illusion that we're not, it's like when we go beyond the personal thinking, when we go back into the settled, when we go back into the neutral, when we go back into the new baby, when we go back into the lack of fear, when we go back into the wholeness as love, that's when we feel the oneness. That's when we feel complete. That's when we feel infinite. And that makes sense to me. So, but I always really struggled with that. You know, there's a lot of unconscious stuff going on here, and I don't know how to do that stuff because I'm not a psychologist and I don't work with energy. So just going out and telling people it's just your thinking, you know, if they have an insight that helps give them clarity and helps them reset, brilliant. But I thought it was like beyond my pay grade to say that it's just that. So whenever I did workshops, it was like, you know, this is kind of how I see it at the moment, but I can't say that it's just thought, because I think there's way more to it than that. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there to kind of maybe sort of for the people that are the three principles saying, yeah, but it's just your thinking. That's kind of where this ties in for me. And yeah, I think personally we're just starting to uncover more about this. I mean, the science behind this is starting to really tell us what this is, what's happening at a quantum level, what is this empty space, that is way more than just empty space. So okay, I've got one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to anyone who has got a specific question based on what we're doing today. But I do just want to say that Fiona and I discussed beforehand whether we were going to do like a live session with anyone, and I just see how we're going with time based on the last few questions. But it would be interesting, I think, for you guys to kind of see what Fiona does, and if we can't do it this time, maybe we will do it on another call. So let me just get the last question out, which was someone mentioned. Where's it gone? I've lost the question. I'm interested in how this fits in with things like muscular injuries and limbic response to release of muscular tension, particularly from trauma. I think we kind of touched upon that. So I don't know if you just want to kind of answer that one.
Yeah. So trauma, and psychology says this, and Peter Levine is in my opinion the main man on this. He's done, written the most books, and he has a whole association called somatic experiencing, and he says that when we have trauma, it literally gets held in ourselves. So to give an example, and one of the trauma cases I had, I forget she's either been attacked or she was in a car. I'm sorry about the ambiguity, but I can't remember. But what she needed to do was this, because you would just protect your face. Something was coming towards her face, and she would have just done this. I think she was in a car, and the wind, that the side mirror was coming in, and she needed to do this, but she couldn't because the seatbelt had locked on her shoulder in such a way that it prevented her from moving up her arm. So a somatic experience, it's just the body's nervous system reaction was to do this. If she did that, she wouldn't have been traumatized, because there's when you're stressed, you want to fight or you want to run away. The saber-toothed tiger, you got no chance you're going to run away. With another tiger, you have to fight, because otherwise you don't keep your ranking in the pack. Now, yes, I'm talking about animals again, because we are animals. From a limbic brain perspective, we're animals. From a trauma perspective, we're purely animals. So when we're in stress, when we're in trauma, when we're in anxiety, our higher lobes, our frontal cortex are not working. They're offline. We're basically in our limbic system. We're not up here. We're not thinking human beings. So in this trauma, this woman wants to do this. Her body wants to do this. It wants to protect her from the glass, because a broken arm, a shattered arm is better than a shattered face, right? So she's going to do this, but the seatbelt locked her in and stopped her doing it. And then at that point, she becomes frozen. So she dissociates. Her energy leaves her body. And again, this is true. Call it consciousness if you want. Her consciousness leaves her body. She has a blackout. She doesn't remember anything after that. She wakes up in hospital. She was a beautiful woman. She's got a scar from here to here, because the glass came in and basically almost cut her face in half. And yes, this was before they changed glass, because glass now goes into cubes, but before it would go into slices. So she was a beautiful woman. I saw pictures of her. She was still beautiful in my opinion. But she had this massive scar, and she had other marks in her body. And I just read her energy. And I got her into the conscious state Damian's talking about earlier, where she was totally deeply relaxed in her body. She was in what's called the theta brainwave, the brainwave you go into as you go asleep, the brainwave you go into healing, the brainwave you go in meditation. And I just said to her, what do you want to do? And she went, and I promise you, that was enough. Her trauma was lessened by 70%. because by her lifting her arm, she unblocked all that stored information, all that stored energy, all that contraction that was in her shoulder. Now, she developed frozen shoulder. She lost the ability to do this. She lost the ability to lift her arm above there because she couldn't do it in the car crash. But in the relaxed state, that signal, you can't do that, stopped going to the shoulder. So I just said to her, what do you want to do? And she'd done that, and that was it. She released the energy. And then we had other work to do, but she released the energy. So what I'm trying to say, what this all means is we store trauma, we store beliefs, we store things inside of our body. Freud also said it, like, in my opinion, he was mad, everything else he said, but this was genius. You know, we store repressed memories in our body. We store instances in our body. I've experienced this time and time again. I can touch somebody on their body in a certain place. They go back to their 1 year old. They cry, they scream, they do whatever they need to do. The energy's released. Bang, they're completely normal. They're off the psychotic drugs. They're normal. Sorry for using the word normal, but you know, they're operating at a level that they can live in life and they can enjoy it. So, you know, we are fully embodied. We are the unmanifest and the manifest. We're thought, conscious, and mind. We're everything. We are powerful beyond our beliefs, unless we're stuck.
Just to back you up on what you said, I saw some scientific studies recently about, they did CAT scans of people that have come back from war zones, and essentially their muscles are in a tense state in the fight state. They're permanently in that state, and the way they actually get them out of that is they actually just send a shock into the muscles, and it releases them temporarily from that state, and then they bring them back into consciousness. And they do this, I think, through use of ketamine or something. So there's ways that, again, from a scientific point of view, it's completely backing up with what you say there. It's almost like it doesn't matter how you do it. It's having the realization that this is how it works, and actually just getting someone to have that shift, to take them out of that fearful state. But I think it's something that you mentioned about, for a lot of people, they don't have this realization. I knew something was up, and I'd known for a while. And I knew it was something to do with my mum and my dad and you know, stuff that they used to say to me as a kid. And I knew that there was something there, but I didn't consciously know what it was. And you just worked with it, or I worked with it through your guidance from an energetic point of view, and unblocked something. So I guess I'm what I'm trying to say here is that even though we are getting more of an understanding of it, in some respects, we don't actually need the understanding. We just need to do the shift, and then just go back to love and carry on and live our lives and do what Sid did.
But it is incredibly important that not just the energy work happens, or not just the release of the muscle happens. It's incredibly important that we bring the consciousness in, and they're like, right, now we've got rid of that, what does life look like now? And unless someone can talk through that, then they won't know, because they've been so used to the trauma that they don't know what it's like to be open. So it's very, we call it future shifting in psychology, but not a lot of psychologists are trained in it. But it's very important that you do that. It's very important that you ground someone in their everyday life. So what does your relationship look like now? What does your life look like now you can move your arm? Because the disadvantage of that, she would have lost her disability benefits. Well, that's the truth of the matter, right? So, you know, it's important that you discuss that, because that's enough for her to not move her arm again. That's enough to recreate trauma.
Okay, I just want to open up. We've got a few minutes left, so I just want to open it up. Has anyone got any questions, or alternatively, would anyone like to do a second webinar where we do some more questions on the back of this one, and then maybe do some live coaching as well, just to kind of give you an example of that? Yeah, hold on, I've got you. Sorry, how do you pronounce your name?
Me, Leslie.
Leslie.
No, I was just saying, yes, I'd like to do a second webinar with some more questions, because I missed the beginning of it. I'm afraid I was fetching children. But
Okay, yeah, fantastic.
Just,
Has anyone got a specific question that they'd like to ask Fiona whilst we're here? Hand up if you do.
can I ask though, as you're talking and it's all going into my head, this seems to be making the perfect circle, which is the energy. 3 principles is wonderful, and mind is wonderful, consciousness, understand and studied all that. But the body is wonderful too, and the whole mechanics of the body and the energy. And what Fiona seems to be adding is the full circle, which
Yeah.
Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Oh, completely. And this is why I'm really excited about doing the work with Fiona, because that's how I felt. I was like, oh, this kind of makes it all come around as full circle. This kind of puts the missing piece in for me, which is the form. So we are in the world of the form. So,
which is a gift. The form's a gift too. So why ignore
oh, absolutely, definitely. Kirsty, you had your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you. So thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
Hiya. It was interesting that you mentioned this, because last week I was doing some thinking like you do, and I was thinking about how a lot of situations, like when people get anxious and stressed and things like that, it's often because when you do a lot of thinking, you're kind of energizing up your system because you're like getting ready for something. And it was a bit like, oh yeah, that's really interesting how all those things kind of link up.
Oh, great. Do you have a question, Kirsty, about that?
Yeah, and I suppose that's what I'm sort of getting at. I was like thinking, I can see how what I'd been thinking about kind of fits in with what you've been saying, and now I'm sort of like wondering where that goes. So you're saying that when people start to become aware of how they're affecting the system, so I'm sort of, so say I was, in a mild example, sitting at my desk and I think, oh wow, I've got this really big piece of work to do, and I start adding some pressurized thoughts, maybe unconsciously, and then I sort of maybe would notice that I start getting a bit fidgety and find it difficult to concentrate, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm chucking too much energy in the system here, I'm firing myself up for something that's bigger than the actual situation that I'm in. So where does that kind of fit in it? And obviously if you take that same example more extreme, that's when people start getting anxious and panicky about situations, because they're putting in the wrong amount of energy into their system and they're ready to run, and actually that's kind of like a false response, isn't it? So I'm sort of thinking that's how the thought in my mind connected to the energy in your body, and I'm wondering what you think about that.
So what you just described is that you're sitting at your desk thinking. So all the energy is just here. It's nowhere else. It's not in your system. It's not in the body. It's just here. But what's then happening is the brain is then firing like adrenaline, and the stress chemicals are then going into the body, and then all your organs in the body are reacting to the stress chemicals. So actually the body's energy is going down all the time, and the brain is just going mental. And anxiety is future based. So the quickest way of get out of anxiety is get up and make a cup of tea. Do something in the present moment. Use the body instead of just not using the body. I can't see there you are. Not using the body. Get yourself in your body, and do something. Become present. Ground yourself, which I'd love to do on a webinar for everyone. It's such a beautiful gift to become into our body. It's like sleeping while we're still awake. So we've got full access to mind and full access to all of our beautiful energy. And it's just an amazing, simple exercise.
I think that's kind of where I sort of managed to put 2 and 2 together and got to, because I was like, hang on a minute, I've got too much energy for doing what I'm doing, which was at the time sitting at a desk. I was like, I'm going to go and do something for 5 minutes. And I did. I went out in the garden and sort of spent 5 or 10 minutes doing something else. Then I came back in and sat down at my desk, and I was like, right, I can see what happened there. I don't need to keep doing that. But it was like, that was the way I'd associated, because I've been thinking about how, like you were saying, about all this sort of stress, and you sort of chuck all that, all the sugar and all that kind of stuff comes out into your body. And I was like, I'm just messing with the system here. And
brilliant. I love it. And yeah, from my point of view, obviously having the understanding of the principles just gives me that awareness that I don't have to trust my thinking in that moment. But what it does do is it then opens me up to the insight, which is, yeah, if I'm feeling anxious, it'll be a signal that, just sitting here without just wallowing in anxiety is not helping. So I then have an insight which says, yeah, get up and go for a walk. Or worst case, it's like when you have that in the middle of the night, you're not going to go back to sleep. So you just get up, walk around, do something. By the time you feel tired, then you're ready to go back to bed and go to sleep again. Because all it is, you start off going to bed feeling tired. All it is just that thinking in the moment, and the energy which is in there, which ain't going to go anywhere until you actually kind of shift it. And that's the insight that, you have. And so having an understanding of the principles kind of points you in the right direction. I just want to say, Sheila's on the call, and Sheila's running with Sue, who was on earlier, is running the Viva event in November 2nd, 3rd and 4th, I think it is. Is that right, Sheila? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm actually going to be speaking at that event, and Jack's going to be there as well, and there's many other brilliant speakers, vivaevent.com. And Fiona, are you planning to come to that?
Yeah, I'm going to be there.
Yes, Fiona's going to be there. That's what I wanted her to say. Yes, so Fiona's going to be there. And then we're actually running an event in Cape Verde in January, but I can send everyone the details about that. And Fiona is going to be doing a 4-day workshop at that event as well. So there's plenty of stuff coming up. But I just wanted to, 3rd to the 5th. There we go. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for that. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to Fiona. And honestly, you've been a real godsend for me in my life and for a lot of my clients as well. And I'm just so grateful to have met you. And it's really a real pleasure to know you. Sorry, I'm just getting all choked up now. So thank you. And yes, we will do another webinar, and we will do some coaching. And if there are any more questions that have come off the back of this webinar, then please just send them to us, and we'll address those again. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Fiona. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
You really are a gift. Thank you. And speak to you all soon. Bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.